This evening we are going to play with sweet cheeses, okay? And everybody knows our cheese case downstairs has lots and lots and lots of varieties, right? And everybody thinks that cheese is strictly for dicing up and putting with mustard and serving with pepperoni, okay? There are a lot of other things you can do with cheese. There are a lot of other varieties and flavors and different types of cheeses that we have out there. One that we're going to play with this evening is Mascarpone, which is a sweet cheese. We have a champagne cheese, which is actually champagne mixed in with it. And then we're going to play with a brie. Now, brie isn't necessarily a sweet cheese. However, we're going to add some things to it to make it more of a dessert, okay? One thing I want to tell you before we get started, next week we are doing outdoor foods, okay? And we have asked the Cub Scouts to be here, okay? Part of their gaining badges and belt loops and things like that is they have to go through a class and actually learn or see some healthier items that have to do with outdoors or the woods or camping, just so everyone knows ahead of time. There may be 3, there may be 20 8 or 9-year-olds running through here, okay? Figured I'd warn you all ahead of time. That's why nobody shows up and is like, what are we doing, okay? All right, the first thing we want to do is start with our tiramisu, okay? And now, if you've ever gone to a restaurant and had tiramisu, this is not what you're going to get in a restaurant. This is something simpler. It's on the last page, and I'm sorry. Jessica did these for me a few days ago, and she asked me what order it was, and I got the text about 4 hours later. When you go to a restaurant, it's much different, okay? It's much more intricate. It's a lot harder to do. This is the same ingredients. It's just a simpler way to do it. You can do it at home, do a single portion, a double portion. You don't have to make a whole big batch. You don't have to waste it. It only lasts about 2 days when you make it. This is something you can do today, eat today or tomorrow, and not have to do tons and tons and tons. We have ladyfingers, mascarpone cheese, cocoa powder, powdered sugar, mint, and we're using rum extract. However, if you prefer it, Myers dark rum or some type of Caribbean rum, okay, is very good for it. The extract works very well, and you can get it in a grocery store, okay? Ladyfingers. If you've never used them, they are a hard kind of cookie. They make 2 different flavors. They make a hard one and a soft one, okay? For this, the hard one is much better. If you use the soft one, it doesn't pull moisture like the hard ones do. They have moisture in them. So when you dip them in the coffee and we go to assemble this, they turn into really, really, really wet sponges, and they just kind of fall apart. The hard ones, once you dip them in the coffee, will soften, and they also pull moisture out of your mascarpone cheese, and that's what we're looking for, okay? The other thing you can use that works is pound cake. Downstairs we have loaf pound cakes. There's lemon and vanilla. If you slice it roughly a pinky thick, and you do the exact same thing, you dip it in your coffee and lay it down and layer it with mascarpone, it'll do the same thing, it just won't have that slight crunch that this will have, right? I like this better because it's got sugar on it, and as you put the coffee on it, the sugar soaks down through the ladyfingers, okay? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with our mascarpone cheese, and I have to apologize, there's one error on that recipe. It is only 1 8-ounce container, not 16 ounces. Which is a good thing because it'll save you all a little bit of money. We're just going to scoop that into a bowl. Once we get that all in there, we're going to add our rum extract. Now, this is strictly discretionary. If you like the flavor, add more. If you don't, go less with it. However, I would recommend making sure there's some in there. I don't want to save that little bit, so we're just going to add it to it. There's no alcohol in it. It can't hurt anything.
If I wanted to duplicate, you just put another half.
I just added another half a teaspoon.
Yeah, it's another half. Okay.
Again, some people really like rum. Some people really don't like rum. So it's strictly what you like. Now, you want to mix this so that it's completely mixed. It will be slightly thicker than sour cream, and that's kind of what you're looking for. Now, I have a little bit that I prepared earlier. We're going to add that too. Now, the warmer this gets, the softer it gets. The colder it gets, the more firm it gets, right? With your tiramisus, they tell you it's best, to make them and refrigerate them for about an hour before service. This is a great dessert to make before dinner. Make your dinner, have your dinner, and then just pull them out ready to go. The longer they sit, the more firm they get, and it kind of gives it a little bit different flavor. With your pastry bag, roll it down, and then make your hand into the shape of a C, and it'll actually hold it there for you. And that'll allow you to scoop this right into it and kind of work it down. Get this out of the way. Now that we have this all mixed up, make sure you squeeze as much air out as you can. And whenever you're using a pastry bag, make sure you twist it. Because if you don't twist it, the first time you squeeze, most of your stuff's going to come out the top. Okay? It's a much bigger hole. It's much less resistance. That's just the way it goes. Now, we have that ready. We need to open our ladyfingers. I have a few of these I'm going to leave up here, so if anybody has never seen them and you want to see what it feels like or looks like texture-wise before we get started, there's a few left we'll show you. We're going to take coffee. I find the best coffee for this is the stuff that's been left over all day. Okay? The stronger the coffee is, the less you need and the less soggy your cookies will be, but you'll still get that same flavor. Okay? If you like really, 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 really weak coffee, naturally you want to make it that way because you don't want the quite intense flavor. Personally, for me, I like to make coffee in the morning, drink what I want out of it, let the rest sit in the refrigerator all day so it gets good and strong, and you'll get the best flavor. Okay? Espresso is the best bet. However, I'm not going to tell you to go out and buy espresso just to make this. I'm sure everyone in this room has coffee of some flavor at home, right? Pretty much. It works the same way.
There's a
Okay?
good iced coffee at McDonald's. No, at Burger King right now for 25 cents.
Yeah, but by the time you melt the ice in it, then you get watered coffee, and it doesn't work as well. Okay. With your ladyfingers, there's a side that's covered in sugar, and then there's a plain side. Take the side that's covered in sugar, and you want to basically drop it in your coffee, push all the way down, shake it off, and then you're going to lay it on your plate. We're going to do this with 4, I believe I said. We're going to lay them side by side. And you can see I'm not leaving them in the coffee very long. Just long enough to dip them in. They're very porous and they're very soft, so they're going to absorb a lot. The sugar that's on there, as you get them wet, now that coffee flavor is help pulling that sugar down through the cookie. Okay? We're going to take our mascarpone cheese. If I can get it to work. Like I said, the colder it gets, the thicker it gets. If you can't squeeze it, go down on your bag and make it smaller, and it'll be much easier to squeeze. We're just going to layer this through it. Now we're going to go back and do the exact same thing. However, you need to make sure that you put your cookies in the opposite direction. If you do them all the same way, it'll just fall apart. Okay, so as you're doing it, make sure you alternate from one direction to the other. They are pretty close in size, so it's not like it's going to be too big. And once they're wet, they're slightly soft, and you can squish them together slightly. Again, you just want to dip them and shake them out real quick. One sleeve of ladyfingers is 12, which is exactly what this recipe calls for.
So do we need to change the 24 ladyfingers to 12?
No, it's meant to make 2 portions.
With 8 ounces of cheese?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, we're going to go back and forth with our cheese. And we'll finish off with our last ladyfingers. Now, this is a slightly large portion. Not really for me. I like sugar. Can't ever get enough. You could cut it in half if you needed to and serve it that way. We'll get it all topped and set up. Now, one thing that's not on there that is strictly up to you, if you have cheese left afterwards, feel free to go right in the center in a small amount. Then we're going to take our sugars. I like to use Coco first. You can do it either way, doesn't matter. And we're simply looking for a tiny bit of cocoa and of powdered sugar. Now, with your cocoa and your powdered sugar, I would recommend doing it right before you serve it. Because you're putting it onto a wet item, it's going to absorb directly down into it. And you won't be able to see it after about 5 minutes, okay? Now the last thing we're going to do is fresh mint. Everybody used mint before? Somebody used mint before? I have plenty here so you can taste it. You can try it when we get done and actually see what it's like to begin with before it goes on here. And you can actually see what you're looking for. What I've done is I took the top off the stem. And now what I'm going to do is take that middle stem out, because I want to use all those leaves, but I don't want it to be that tall. And what that allows me to do is simply lay that across and then take the top and go same place with it and give you a much bigger looking leaf without having that whole big space. Now, you could make that and serve it right away, okay? Like I said, it's good to let it sit for a little while. The colder it gets, the more firm it will get. There's nothing wrong with making that now, letting it sit for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours while you're actually eating dinner and enjoying dinner, and then serving a wonderful dessert afterwards.